Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about something a little different. I've talked before about the amount of submissions that every agent gets and how if we looked at everything with kind of the attention and consideration that probably every submission deserves, we wouldn't have time to do any other work. And therefore, what happens, and certainly what I do, is I reject things very, very quickly. And certainly I've had the assistants here kind of laugh at me because they think that looks arbitrary, but it really isn't. It's a pretty considered process. And I know that some things are going to slip through the net, but I think it's much better and fairer to give a quick no than an indefinitely prolonged no. It's agony to wait for an author. You'd much rather know and be able to move on, at least derive something from it. Now, what I've got here next to me is a pile of unsolicited manuscripts, which I've glanced at. There's been a certain amount of preparation here, but I haven't looked at it too closely. And they're ones that I would reject simply on the strength of their letters. I glanced at it, and something on the page allows me to say no. Now, I really want to make clear this is a fairly risky thing for me to be doing. You know, people could really hate me for it, but that is not, I'm not doing it to rub any salt in anyone's wounds. I'm doing it because I don't think writers necessarily understand the kinds of mistakes that they make that trigger instant rejections. And obviously, if you want your book to be read and considered closely, not making those mistakes is a really good idea. And of course, for any of the writers who feel they recognise their work, I'm not going to be talking too specifically, I'm not going to be giving titles out. For any writers who do feel they recognise their work, I suppose the one thing I'd say is at least you're getting some feedback this way. Otherwise you just get our standard rejection letter, which gives no feedback. So, with all of that in mind, and with a certain amount of trepidation, here goes. So, first off the pile, here we go, The Crisis in British Medicine. Well, that's pretty much instantly a no-no. It shows why the National Health Service is not fit for purpose. Problem with that is, unless, and I would have scouted through, this person is someone incredibly senior, and they're a doctor, and I'm sure incredibly well informed, but they're not, even if this was Theresa May or the Home Secretary or someone like that, a senior politician, this is a book that I would struggle to sell. So it's a no. Next book. This is an explosive tale of psychotic and supernatural mayhem. Comedy being signalled here. It's got a punning title, which is pretty much an instant no for me. And it's 47,500 words long, which is not a novel. It's not sellable. So it's a no. So, number 3. A love story set in 1975. Someone who becomes a musician in a rock band, and the story simply says that eventually, that's the description, is does he want a life of chasing fame and fortune in America, or does he want to stay with a mundane job but with the woman he loves? I'm a bit underwhelmed by that. I don't feel that I really want to commit 10 hours of my life, potentially, to reading that story. It could be beautifully done, but I'm not grabbed by it. So it's a no. And of course that may be unfair. I accept that. So, this is a fantasy sci-fi for young adults. It's the right length. It's addressed to me, although my name is misspelt. I don't really mind that kind of thing, but it is silly. Actually, to be honest with you, on a bad day, that would be just straight in the pile. It's not Blofeld, it's Blofled. Wrong. Anyway, it's the second paragraph that really leaps out at me here, which is the protagonist face down in a cell, forced into a punishment suit. He is being detained in Grathgard, an institute for the young and demonically possessed. It just communicates to me that the author is maybe a little bit too inside the story. If you've ever heard the concept of you know, I've seen someone wearing a suit where the suit wears them. Well, some writers, I think the story, you know, wears them rather than the other way around. It doesn't communicate to me that he's in control of this. It's I don't know, not quite there yet. It's a very fine judgment to make, but I'm not instantly kind of, that sounds good. I'm slightly going, who's this? Where? Why? How? And if that's doing that in the first line, that makes me think that it'll be doing it throughout the book. And so it's a no. I mean, you can see what this is like. I don't feel great doing it anyway. So please find enclosed manuscript synopsis and testimonial. This is a kind of no-no. Writing began in childhood when I wrote stories for my dolls and for anyone who would listen. You know, I know that that's intended to sound sort of winning and sweet, but it also implies that you've always had an unwilling audience for your writing, and that's not great. In that a doll can't be a willing audience. So it's that kind of puts. The other thing is the letter doesn't. It's a good title. Painting with Jam is a nice title, but it doesn't tell me anything about it. You've just enclosed the novel, and you've told me a bit about your writing, but you aren't saying this is the story and this is why I'm interested. Give me a blurb, hook me. Sorry, it's a no. So, dear Shield Land Associates, so my reading has been very wide and eclectic. Lots of stuff about your reading and who you like. Some good authors, some good commercial authors. I've led an interesting life, which is great. I have an ability to relate history, and I'd greatly appreciate your consideration. You haven't told me about the book. I've read quite a long letter, and there's nothing about the actual book. It's a no. So, retired person living in Cyprus, made it my life's work never to take anything, including myself, too seriously, which is great. Blessed by being able to surround myself with real characters and genuine eccentrics. Well, this falls into a category of, haven't I led a marvellous life? And I'm, you know, it's great that you've enjoyed it, and these kinds of books are great to share with relatives and with family members and children and grandchildren. But the prospect of it having a wider sale seems pretty remote to me, I'm afraid, because without that personal connection, I'm not sure how interesting this is likely to be, even if it is written amazingly well. And from what I've read so far, I'm not convinced that it's quite at that standard. So, it's a no. So, last one. A slightly unusual one, but we get this gives you an idea of the range of things we get. So this is a Greek author who has gone to the length of having his novel translated into English, and because he thinks it would work better in English. And I'm afraid that just all seems too complicated to me. I mean, I really regret, and I always hate it when you find people who spend probably a considerable sum of money getting things done where you fear that that's wasted money. So, you know, if you're going to break out from a foreign country or whatever it is, you need to kind of do it through possibly some of these more traditional routes. It's really hard to pay for your own translations. Anyway, it just feels complicated, and it feels like something that's going to be a potential headache, so it's a no. So, there you go. That's my first Rejection live, and seeing on how the feedback goes, depending on whether I get kind of ton of abuse for doing this. I really hope I don't. I mean, I really, really hope people do understand that I'm doing this because I want to demystify what goes on. I want people to understand that there are some quite simple processes and quite simple decisions that underpin most of what it is that agents do and most of what it is that publishers do. And understanding those things better will enable you to stand a better chance of getting your books published. So I hope it's taken in that spirit and not in anything more negative. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye.